This one was a journey. Let's talk about why. Hola mi gente, MsMalcolmHughes here. Welcome back. Today we are going to discuss Just As I Am by Lynn Harris, the second book in the Invisible Life trilogy. And here we pick up with our main man, Raymond Tyler Jr. I am going to get into what the book is about, what I loved about it, what I disliked about it, and whether or not you should read it. So when we pick up our story with Raymond Tyler Jr., we find him in Atlanta. We get an update that he had left New York, gone back home to Alabama to run his father's law firm for a couple of years, but now he's in Atlanta. He is a sports attorney and he is still trying to figure out his love life. As you know, in the first one, we ended up with him being in love with two individuals. One was a married man, one was a straight woman, and him having to kind of lose them both in order to be honest and true with himself. He really wanted to be with a woman, but in the end she demanded that he had to be able to promise that he would never be with another man again. And he loved her and he was in love with her, but he could not give her that. And so here we are. We are here now in the second part of the series, and we're picking up with Raymond in Atlanta. He is trying to figure out what is his sexual identity. Eventually he does land on the fact that he is bisexual, but it is important for him to come to terms with this. And that's a big part of what we follow throughout this story. How does he come to terms with that? We also have his core group of friends. We have Kyle, and Kyle takes up a lot of this story, but as he should, because he's telling a very important story. We are watching Kyle deal with the trials and tribulations, the hardships and acceptance of having AIDS. And so what does this mean during that time? There's no way to like prolong it. You're not living with it. At this point in time, it was a death sentence. And so grappling with all of that, and how does that impact his decisions? How does that impact Ray, right? His very close friend. And Ray and Kyle, especially Kyle on Ray, has been so integral in Ray coming to terms of trying to understand his sexual identity and just his whole life in New York. Though Kyle was such a staple, so the impact that this has on Kyle is significant. We also have Nicole. So this actually goes back and forth. We have one chapter is Nicole, one chapter is Ray. It goes back and forth the entire book. And Nicole is the woman who broke Ray's heart, or she would say Ray broke her heart. They broke each other's hearts because they could not be what they wanted. Well, Ray couldn't be all of who she wanted him to be without being untrue to himself. So we also get her. We get to watch her explore as well life after feeling like she had such a betrayal. In the first book, her best friend dies from AIDS. She was in love with a man who was secretly bisexual and is actually the first man that Ray was ever actually with. So that's a whole thing. Read book one if you haven't. But this one, she's on the other side of that, and she's having a hard time. She's trying to figure out career-wise what she's doing, but then also sexuality, what does that mean? And also the dreams. Do you hold on to old dreams? Do you let them go? Do you allow new love in? What if new love is complicated, especially when you're dating someone of a different culture? And what does all of that mean? Dealing with family dynamics. There's so much of that throughout the entire book. And then we also have a character of Delaney. And so again, someone who is very secure in who they are, but is assaulted in a way. And how do you grapple with that? What do you allow to slide? How do you handle it? How do you determine what it means to get justice? So all of this is happening. All of this is the premise of our book. What I loved about it, I loved our characters. I love the topic areas. I remember reading Lynn Harris when I was a baby teenager and should not have been. Sneaking into Borders after school, reading just for hours, and just because I was not supposed to take these books home, okay? Or going to the library and just reading them. Oh gosh. But he was someone who from a young age helped me understand the idea of sexuality, fluidity, bisexualness, homosexuality, lesbianism. What does it mean? These were some of the books that were some of my first understandings, or trying to grapple with understanding, because you have to come to terms with all of it for yourself. But these are some of the first books that really laid that foundation for me. And so coming back to them now, I still see why I loved them at that time. I still see how, for like a younger me, it definitely helped shape my thought process on a lot of these topics and how they related to me. So these books will always hold a special place in my heart for that. But I appreciate that they're still here. And even though these books were written decades ago at this point, we still find the relevance they're in. And I love that. I really, really love the story of Kyle, and just understanding someone who chose to live life on their own terms, the negatives, the positives, what that all mean, coming to terms with this deadly disease that you have, and or deadly virus that you have, and what does that mean as far as how do you choose to exit this life, or do you choose to fight and survive, right? And what does that mean to fight when you know that the odds are not in your favor? And so grappling with all of that, beautiful, love that. I love Ray. Ray went through a lot, but I love grappling with friendship, because this book is also very much about friendship. And so the idea of loving someone who isn't interested in you romantically at all, but the empathy there for them to say, if I were even a little bit gay, maybe it would be you. And so accepting oneself, accepting the reality, choosing love or choosing lust. I loved grappling with all of that. Also with Nicole, with her colorism and the battles that she had therein, and accepting herself, and coming up against that with sometimes how she had been perceived in the world, or even how people may have treated you at this point in time, and now it's significantly different. How do you align and make peace with those two within yourself? So I loved that. I love just the realistic aspects of this work. I love that the topics were still relatable. I love that the storyline pulls you in. I loved that the topics seem timely across time. I loved that. It's people, right? So people, even though the issues may evolve, the way we navigate may look different, people at the core are always people, and we'll have human problems. And I like stories that are timeless in that way. So that's what I really enjoyed about it. You know, the story progressed. As it continued to progress forward, I became more invested. So that's good storytelling. What did I dislike about it? At some points, the verbiage used did feel like it belonged to a specific time. It seemed a little outdated, which can happen when you're using jargon. So that sometimes is unsettling. There were also times where I feel like the pacing was a little slow, and I felt as if let's move it along, right? I want to hear about something else, or a chapter may go longer than I anticipated, and I'm like, I want to hear about this other character now. What's going on with that storyline? Where's Basil? If you don't know Basil, please get to know him. That was another thing for me that was interesting, and it's not a negative or a positive, it's a neutral, or just my own evolution and growth as a human. But when I was younger, I remember very much loving Basil Henderson. I might have even said that in my first review, like, ran back into this character that we love, Mr. Basil Henderson. But in this book, we got to know more about Basil, and Basil's shortcomings, and Basil's insecurities, and Basil's flaws. And we don't really get a lot of his strong suits. He tries to show up. Basil actually reminds me of someone I know in real life. But he's trying to show up, but he's just emotionally intelligent. He's not there yet. That IQ, not there yet. He's sometimes way more brawn. He tries to be compassionate, but that temper is gonna get you in trouble every time. So in this book, I was able to really see the flaws in Basil, and how problematic and self-hating his ideology is, and his approach to life. So that actually allowed me to sit back and ponder as well, just the same things I guess he grapples with, what's pushed upon us as far as expectations in society, how that influences influences us as adults, and then how once we reach certain levels of maturity and self-awareness, we have to unpack, challenge, undo a lot of what has been forced upon us from society, and we choose what we want to keep and what we want to discard. So I actually do hope that we get a little bit more of Basil in book 3. It's been a long time since I read these books originally, y'all, so I don't even remember all of what happens, and so that's exciting reading them again. So right now we're not sure what the future holds for Basil. We're not sure what the future holds for Ray, but I did like that, you know, things ended on a up note, right? I wouldn't say happy endings, but definitely ended on an up note for everyone, and there's a level of peace and acceptance at the end of the book that I really, really appreciated. So overall, I definitely enjoyed this book. I like what Lynn Harris was trying to do, a lot of the messages that he was trying to get across, and I definitely think it was worth the read. So if I were to rate this on my scale of read now, read when you have time, or read it if you want, I would say that this is definitely a read it when you have time. Though I did greatly enjoy it, I think I loved it more when I was younger. At that time, it just seemed so edgy and so different, and maybe that's a good thing. I've read more books. So I've seen these topics covered in different ways, but for what it meant at the time when he was writing, these books will always be top tier and will always hold a special place in my heart. And so I will always recommend that you all read them. That is it for today, y'all. That's my vlogmas video. I hope that everyone is having a fantastic day. But until next time, I am MsMalcolmHughes, the one who believes that books are sometimes better than people. Please remember to give time, to be kind to each other, and to have the very best day of your life on purpose. Peace, odabo, adios, ciao.